Somehow much is demonstrated here. I'd rather live next door to a refugee than a Tory. Yes, there's loads demonstrated there. For example, the marvellous and miraculous power of delusion. It's all well and good going on about having a positive mental attitude, up to the point you get staked out in your front garden and rogered more than a copper's radio by 20 blokes from Afghanistan. I'm just putting it out there. Right, today's video is going to be about the upcoming financial collapse of the United Kingdom. I've talked about it a lot, but I think we're at the crunch point now, aren't we? After yesterday's news that they're going to have to ramp taxes up again. So I'm not going to be talking about this. Not enough material for a full video. I just want to point out at the start, before we get going, that even the people that put these signs up don't believe it themselves. It's performative nonsense. And I'll tell you how we know the creator of the sign even knows this. It's because not once in my entire life have I ever seen a posh bloke in a suit and tie drop his trousers and snap one off in the street. No, never seen that. I've also never seen, I can reel these things off. We've all seen it. I've never seen a posh bloke in his suit and tie roasting a goat in his front garden, despite the fact he's got a gas oven inside his free council house. I've never seen a posh bloke in a suit perform an exorcism on a child and then cave her head in with a ladle because he thinks ghosts are in a skull. I've never seen that happen. I've only ever seen one group of people do that, and it isn't the Tories. What else haven't I seen a posh bloke in a suit do? Punch a policewoman in the face, chop a squaddy's head off in the middle of the street, or blow himself up at a pub concert. Easy. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know this person is talking absolute bollocks. But enough of that, let's talk about why in 12 months' time you're not going to be eating penguin biscuits with your tea, because you won't have biscuits or tea. You're going to be eating the penguins in your local zoo. Nice one. Right, the story I'm going to be covering is this excellent piece by Annabel Denham. It's common sense, and I think your average bricklayer knows this stuff. But it helps with your credibility to read out, articles by people with letters after the names. So I'll read you the important points from it, shall I? And then we're going to discuss the Laffer curve, because that's another thing that clever people go on about all the time. But again, it's common sense that anybody who mastered words on a tin and year 3 maths in primary school can tell you without having to read any textbooks or attend a university class. Right then, it's from Annabel Denham. Reeves has driven Britain to the Reeves.
She's a spastic.
Has driven Britain to the brink. Full-blown crisis will soon be upon us. Oh, it definitely will. Taxes can be ratcheted up only to a certain extent before revenues crash. That is the aforementioned Laffer curve. We have reached that point. No shit, Sherlock. And there she is. Mongo do sums now. Come along, Mongo. Walk us through your lack of a plan. Britain's fiscal reckoning has arrived. The 20 billion black hole has, according to one new estimate, doubled in size. Under the Mongchula's dubious stewardship, most of the money we are now borrowing is not going towards paying off our debt, but the interest on the debt. Colossal off-the-book liabilities, such as public sector pensions, have been hidden from voters by successive governments, and they are now falling due. Again, for the last year, how many times have I covered this? They hate private businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and yes, even Globotrons. They pay all the taxes. They create things. Even if you are an important public servant and you actually do some work, which is a vanishingly small amount of them, let's say you're a capable firefighter and you are actually capable of climbing up a ladder and dragging a fat bloke out of a burning building in the dampest country in the world. Let's not talk about that. But let's say you actually are a capable firefighter and we do need you. You're still not a producer. Private industry creates wealth. If you're a fireman, you are still taking money out of the public purse. And all this government does is reward public sector workers because they want everybody to be on the government tit. So they just keep throwing money at the public sector while smashing the private sector. And when you start doing that, like every time the Labour government have ever been in charge, you go bankrupt. This isn't rocket science, is it? For years, the country has behaved like a household hooked on payday loans. Which reminds me, Carol Vorderman, she talks a good game, loves making out as if she's moral and just and a nice person. She used her countdown fame, so chavs, addicted to scratch cards and special brew and super kings, would see her and go, ooh, she knows what she's good at sums, she's on telly. And she used that knowledge to do a payday loans ad campaign, taking advantage of stupid people so they'd get massive loans out at 837% APR. That's how much of a moral, decent person that rubber-faced slapper is. In fact, no, not just rubber-faced. I'm doing her a disservice there. She's more rubberised than Stretch Armstrong. She's got plastic face, rubber tits, and a balsa wood fanny. Anyway, now the bills have come through the letterbox and we've no cash left to cover them. Even the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, left-leaning, is warning that if the Chancellor is to remain within her fiscal rules, she must raise taxes or cut spending by 51 billion. 51 billion. Do you remember when they were gobbing off about that 22 billion black hole that the Tories apparently left them with? Well, it's 51 billion now, boys. Buckle up. And now we get to the rub. What many may not realise is that 75% of government expenditure is mandated, benefits, pensions, and therefore they can't be avoided. Only a quarter of it is discretionary, like transport and defence. So even if you wanted to cut, you can't cut. Think of that. It also means further tax rises, which Reeves in January insisted would not be necessary, are inevitable. Again, that word. Under Kim Jong-Starmlin, financial collapse is inevitable. No wonder asset managers are telling clients to prepare for very real, very targeted moves on people with portfolios, pensions and property. Be very afraid. Oh yes, they are going to rob you blind. The Moncula's going to be like Dick Turpin. If you've got cash in the bank, or a private pension, or a house that's worth anything, they're going to rob you. 100%. I guarantee it. And again, it's almost boring talking about it. It's what they always do. The actual wealthy, the proper wealthy, they'll just piss off to Monaco they've already left. The people they end up robbing, just like the Haldimor, when the rich actually means working class people who after 45 years have finally got a tiny bit of money, they're the ones who get a bullet in the head. They're the ones who lose everything. They're the ones who get bent over by Comrade Starmlin and his Soviet-era government. This is why I keep telling you it's boring. This stuff's dull. If you've ever read a history book, nobody in the Labour front bench has, but you have, it's boring. It's what they always do. Every single time they get into power, they make you bankrupt and they rob everyone. And then they get turfed out of power for a few decades until everyone's daft enough to have forgotten about it, and then they do it again. It's not even interesting. I mean, shall I carry on? Probably not much point, is there? Not when your audience pays attention to the world. How did we get into this mess? Well, we know how we got into this mess because we've been ran by monkeys for the last 30 years. Public finances are appalling. I've talked about this. Apparently a quarter of the country are disabled. Yeah. A quarter of the country is disabled. If you think a quarter of the country is disabled, you think a posh bloke in a suit is as likely to blow himself up at a pop concert as a 20-year-old illiterate goat herder from a country full of bell-end churches. That's how thick you are. The whole nation is ram-packed with parasites. If a quarter of the country was disabled, every street you walk down, you'd be greeted by Stephen Hawking lookalikes. That's not the case. The true number's probably about 1 in 20. That are actually disabled, but 1 in 4 is on the government tit. I'm amazed it's took this long for the broadsheets to start talking about total financial collapse, because it's definitely coming. And I'll finish on this because I love it when the rubber hits the road and the morons that run the world, the great and the good, realise, as I always say, that plumbers and bricklayers and window cleaners and bus drivers have a better grasp of economics than anyone sitting in the House of Commons. Polling suggests the public are closer to grasping our fiscal reality than politicians, with economic optimism now half of what it was in July 2024. Some 9.1 million people of working age are currently economically inactive. Over half of households are taking more from the state than they're putting in. Over half. Brilliant. And every day we import more ticks, more leeches to attach themselves to the testicles of the state. Fantastic. And as the number of net contributors shrinks, who do people believe is footing the bill? The rich. Yeah, the rich have already left, lads. The rich have done one. Because anyone with the means has left. You know what? Even on a minor scale, I'm a good example. Because I was born and raised in the UK from the ages 0 to 35. That's where I live. That's where I'm from. Never took a penny in dole. Never on the sick. Nothing. I've had a note off the state. I've never ever been into a dole office. And I left. I was like, no, you're all right, lads. I'll go and work for a company in a country that doesn't tax you till your plums ache. And you can replace me with, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 million Somalians. Yeah, good deal. And then, as promised, here's an easy explanation of the Laffer curve. I prefer the term the arsehole arch because any bog standard working class arsehole knows this stuff anyway. You don't need to give it a special name. The Bootneck bend. All this means is, to summarise without you having to read the whole thing, is that normal humans are stubborn, and when you tax the plums off us, we get so bitter and twisted and angry and resentful, we stop paying tax. Or as a professor might put it, beyond the optimal point which maximises tax revenue, further increases can lead to a decrease in tax revenue. This happens because excessively high taxes can disincentivise work, investment and production, shrinking the overall tax base. No shit, Sherlock. So you always hear people talking about the Laffer curve. It's basic common dog. If you don't think that's a thing, you've never met a bricklayer. You've never met a normal working class bloke who has to get out of bed every day in the rain, in the snow, to go and carry bricks up a ladder on a hod in the rain, who every single day when he comes home knackered and pissed off and he sees a big gang of Afghans or Somalians or whoever else has just rocked up and got a free house, he comes home from work knackered after pulling his pudding out for 10 hours on a building site, and he sees them all sitting on deck chairs in the front garden drinking cans of special brew that he had to pay for. And as I've told loads of you dozens of times, your average stubborn working class man, the backbone of the country, will rip his own heart out before he will have the piss taken out of him by hostile foreign men. This Laffer curve, they always talk about it like it's some grand theory. Anyone who's ever been lucky enough to get a decent job in the UK and then looked at the wages and seen how high the tax rate was has gone, I'll tell you what, if they put that up another 2%, I'm going on the dole. I'm going on the dole. I'd rather live off tap water and salted porridge and pot noodles and be an absolute scrubber than pull my pudding out to feed and clothe a bunch of people whose children are quite likely to want to finger mine above a kebab shop or blow themselves up at a pop concert. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Very clever people figure out where the income tax rate should be. And when you go slightly too high, people throw their hands up and go, right, I'm digging my heels in. You are not getting another penny out of me. So I advocate it at this point. There's a Mong holding the big red case, all right? The aforementioned Rachel Reeves.
She's a spastic.
Yeah. So don't work. That's my advice to an Englishman. It's fine if you're working part-time, but again, you're not making any money. If you're making about 20 grand a year and you're working part-time, you've got a half-decent quality of life because, like me, you have a Spartan lifestyle and you don't need much money and you don't need jewellery and new cars and new phones every year or two. Carry on doing that. If you don't hate your life, carry on doing it. But if you're actually pulling your pudding out in a job you don't like, I heartily endorse at this point the Mick Philpott lifestyle. Yeah, do nout. Do nout. It's a bit like Martin Luther King's boycott of the buses, except my plan's better because you don't have to walk anywhere. No, you just have to sit on your fat ass and eat Chicago town pizzas all day and scrimp on by with your dole or your fake disability or your child tax credit or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I've never had any of these benefits. All I've ever done's worked, obviously. That's why I left. But it's time to take the piss. If you're working hard in a job you hate to give 50% of your wage to the government so they can feed and clothe the next generation of suicide bombers, embrace the dolly lifestyle, boys and girls, and it's going to be good for your mental health in the long run, innit? Knowing that you're not helping groomers, knowing that you're not paying for the KY jelly they're using above the kebab shops, you'll sleep soundly at night if you know you're pitching in. Embrace the Spartan lifestyle. I've told you a lot this dozens of times. get used to it. Drink water, eat healthy, exercise. It's all cheap. You only need loads of money when you buy frivolous crap and you eat out in overpriced restaurants. Or even worse, use Deliveroo and directly fund Al-Qaeda. Okay, there's a storm brewing. There's going to be a financial collapse. Batten down the hatches, embrace the Spartan lifestyle, and you'll be a happier man for it. All right? But that's just my opinion. If you think pulling your pudding out every day, using Deliveroo and taxis and buying food off people that definitely will lower their conkers into the coleslaw before they drop it off on your front door, you let me know in the comments down below, because I love reading the ramblings of a madman when I wake up every morning. All right? Thanks for tuning in. See you all tomorrow. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Toodle pip. Cheers.